Okay, let's do the problem set on the organization principles of market systems. And let's just start with where we ended in the lecture video, which is starting with a market equilibrium. And what you can see here is we have an inverse demand function. And again, the inverse demand function is typically given because whenever we need to draw a function, it's easier to have the price to the left side of the equal sign. But if you wanted to know what is now this demand function, we would start with Q, and then in this case we would say, well, Q, if we rearrange terms, that's just 8 minus P. So that would be now the demand function, not the inverse one. And likewise the supply function, not the inverse supply function, that could be written as Q. Also we start with Q, that makes it the supply function. And then if we just rearrange terms, we will see this is equal to minus 2 plus P. But again, it's easier to draw it like this. So technically what you see here, demand, it should say inverse demand. Actually, let's just be on the safe side. Let's put it inverse demand and inverse supply. And so now if we draw it, insert, so shapes, so the intercept is 8. Okay, it starts at 8 and it goes down with a slope of -1, so there's technically this invisible 1. So here this would be our demand function, and the supply function would start here at 2, that's the intercept, and it has a slope of +1, and it will go up like this. And let's also make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so now we have our demand and supply, and now there are like a couple of questions. So if the price is 7, what's the quantity demanded? Okay, if the price is 7, quantity demanded is 1. Actually, I'll just type it in there. So that is 1. And what is the quantity supplied? Well, the quantity supplied is 5. So now we have excess supply of 4, that's the difference. And of course we don't have excess demand because we have excess supply. Then, you can see now if the price is 6, so now quantity demanded increases and quantity supplied goes down, so quantity demanded is 2, quantity supplied is now 4. So we still have excess supply of 2, we still don't have any excess demand, so that's 0. Then at the price of 5, you see that is where the equilibrium is. So we have neither excess supply nor excess demand. And the next question is if the price is 4. Okay, if the price is 4, quantity demanded is now 4. And quantity supplied is 2. Okay, so now we don't have excess supply, but excess demand of 2. And the last one is at the price of 3, we have a quantity demanded of 5 and a quantity supplied of 1. So we don't have any excess supply, but we have excess demand of 3. And of course, in such an equilibrium, in such a situation, there will be always a tendency to move towards the market equilibrium, which would be 5 and 3. So the point at the market equilibrium is that all the people whose willingness to pay is greater than anybody's willingness to sell they will ultimately meet. Only to the right of the market equilibrium you will find people whose willingness to sell is greater than anybody's willingness to pay, so of course they will not be served. So only 3 units will be turned over in the market, and that's a term that I use also often for the equilibrium quantity, the quantity turned over, so that will be 3, and the market equilibrium price is 5. So there are people whose willingness to pay is actually much greater, but eventually, because the equilibrium price will be 5, they will actually be able to buy the good. And there are on the supply curve, we have basically a lineup of many producers according to their willingness to sell. And all those people to the left of the equilibrium quantity, which is 3, they can sell and get more than what they are willing. They get more than what their willingness to sell is. So they will supply too. But to the right, so here, this is our equilibrium price, and here is our equilibrium quantity, which is 3. And you have to think of the demand function as a lineup of consumers according to their willingness to pay, and all those consumers that are on the demand function between 0 and 3, their willingness to pay exceeds the price, so they get to buy the good. And likewise on the supply function, we have a lineup of many producers according to their willingness to sell. And between 0 and 3, we have only producers who can actually sell below a price of 5. But to the right, you can see here to the right of 3, you have only consumers whose willingness to pay is less than anybody else's willingness to sell, so they will not get to meet. So we say the market clears at the price of 5 and a quantity of 3. And that means that all the people who would like to have the good and can pay the price, the market equilibrium price, they get to buy the good. And all the firms that are able to supply the good at the price at 5 or less, they will get to supply the good. That's a market equilibrium. Okay, I'll just stop here and then we work in the next video, the next problem set.